My husband said I wasn't ambitious enough. He told me I was just the wife, while he and his real estate agent Lauren made plans to build an empire without me. He left thinking he'd upgraded. He had no idea that every single property they dreamed of buying already had my name on the deed. My name is Emma Whitmore. People say I'm quiet. I prefer precise. Growing up in the Whitmore house meant Sunday dinners, where business was discussed over roast beef. My grandfather would spread blueprints across the dining table, pointing out property lines with his weathered finger. Real estate isn't about the sale, Emma, he'd say. It's about the hold. I was 12 when I understood what he meant. The Whitmores didn't flip houses or chase quick profits. We accumulated. Quietly. Strategically. Like collecting chess pieces while everyone else played checkers. When grandfather passed, I inherited more than money. I inherited a legacy built on patience and precision. 17 properties across 3 counties. Commercial buildings downtown. Residential complexes in up-and-coming neighborhoods. Multi-use developments that most people didn't even know existed. Some properties were held in family LLCs. Others sat in trusts. A few were in my name directly, but I never talked about it, especially not to Daniel. When we met at a charity fundraiser 5 years ago, he was manning the silent auction table. Charming smile, quick wit, completely broke. He drove a 15-year-old Honda and lived in a studio apartment that smelled like instant coffee and ambition. I found it refreshing. Most men who approached me wanted to know about my family's money before they asked my middle name. Daniel talked about his dreams instead. Real estate empire, his own agency, making a name for himself. I loved his hunger. He loved that I believed in him. Our first year together was magical. Daniel would pick me up in his Honda and we'd drive through neighborhoods he wanted to conquer. He'd point out fixer-uppers and describe his renovation plans. I'd listen, adding small suggestions that he'd eagerly absorb. "You have such a good eye," he'd say, squeezing my hand. I paid for his real estate license without him asking. Connected him with my grandfather's old broker. Even helped design his business cards, choosing elegant fonts that suggested success without screaming desperation. "How do you know so much about this stuff?" he asked one evening as we reviewed his marketing materials. "I've been around it my whole life," I said simply. That was true. It just wasn't the whole truth. Daniel threw himself into real estate with the intensity of someone who had something to prove. Late nights studying market trends, weekend open houses, cold calls that stretched past midnight. Then he partnered with Lauren Murphy. Lauren was everything I wasn't. Blonde where I was brunette. Loud where I was soft-spoken. She wore designer suits to showings and drove a BMW that was always perfectly clean. She was also good at her job. Lauren's got this instinct, Daniel would tell me over dinner. She can walk into a property and know exactly what it's worth. It's like she has X-ray vision or something. I'd nod and ask about his day, filing away every detail he shared about their partnership. At first, it was professional. Strategy meetings at coffee shops. Joint showings for high-end listings. Success bred collaboration, and collaboration bred something else. The signs were small. Daniel started working later. His phone buzzed with texts during our dinners out. He'd glance at them quickly, then slide the phone face down with an apologetic smile. "Sorry, babe. Lauren's got questions about the Morrison listing." The Morrison listing became their white whale. A commercial property downtown that had been sitting empty for months. They spent weeks researching comparable sales, drafting proposals, courting the seller. This could be our big break. Daniel said one night, his eyes bright with possibility. "Lauren thinks we can flip it into luxury condos. The profit margin would be incredible." I made appropriate, encouraging sounds. But I knew the Morrison building wouldn't sell to them, because I'd owned it for 3 years. The late nights turned into weekend research trips. Daniel and Lauren would disappear for hours, supposedly touring properties and meeting with potential investors. I started recognizing the signs I'd learned to read in business meetings. The way Daniel's voice changed when he said Lauren's name, how he'd shower immediately when he came home from their work sessions, the careful distance he suddenly kept between us in bed. One Thursday evening, I waited until Daniel finished his phone call with Lauren before asking the question I already knew the answer to. "Do you have feelings for her?" He froze his hand, still holding his phone. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. He didn't deny it. Couldn't lie convincingly enough to sell it. "Emma, it's okay?" I said quietly. "I just wanted to know." That night, I lay awake listening to Daniel's breathing and planning my next moves. The conversation came 3 weeks later. Daniel sat me down at our kitchen table like he was presenting a business proposal. His posture was straight, his voice steady. He'd rehearsed this. "I've grown," he began. "This partnership with Lauren has shown me what I'm capable of when I'm with someone who truly understands my vision." I folded my hands in my lap and listened. "You've changed, Emma. You've become comfortable, content with just existing instead of building something meaningful." He pushed a manila envelope across the table. "Lauren sees where I'm headed. She pushes me to be better, to want more." Divorce papers, already drawn up, already signed on his end. "This isn't easy for me," he continued. "But I need a partner who matches my ambition, someone who won't hold me back from my potential." I opened the envelope and scanned the documents. Standard terms. Equitable division of assets. Except Daniel had no idea what those assets actually were. "I'll make this as painless as possible," he said. "You can keep the house. I'll take care of moving my things out this weekend." I set the papers down carefully. "Where will you go?" "Lauren found us a great rental downtown. Perfect location for building our business. Us, not me and Lauren, us. I appreciate everything you've done for me, Emma. I really do. The license, the connections, the support. But I need more now." I nodded slowly. "I understand." Relief flickered across his face. He'd expected tears, maybe anger. Instead, I was giving him exactly what he wanted. A clean exit. After Daniel moved out, I allowed myself exactly one evening to feel the weight of betrayal. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of building someone else's dreams while keeping my own capabilities hidden. I sat in our empty bedroom, my empty bedroom, and let the hurt wash over me like a fever breaking. Then I got to work. The first email arrived 2 weeks after the divorce papers were signed. "Dear property owner, I represent interested buyers looking to acquire 223 Rose Lane. Would you be open to discussing terms?" The sender was listed as L. Morgan. But I recognized Lauren's writing style from the Christmas cards she used to send. 223. Rose Lane was a charming Victorian I'd purchased 4 years ago. Perfect bones, great neighborhood, exactly the kind of property that ambitious young realtors dreamed of flipping. I had my property manager respond, "Thank you for your interest. The property is not currently for sale." 3 days later, another email. "Hello, my client is very motivated to purchase residential properties in the Birchwood area. Competitive offers, cash deals, quick closings." This one came from D. Sterling. Daniel's middle name was Sterling. Birchwood was where I owned a cluster of single-family homes, all recently renovated, all generating excellent rental income. Same response. "Not for sale at this time." They were systematic, I had to give them credit. Over the next month, they contacted me about 8 different properties, always through intermediaries, always with compelling offers. They had no idea they were circling the same person every time. I started keeping a spreadsheet. Date, property, pseudonym used, offer amount. The pattern emerged quickly. They weren't just interested in random real estate. They were targeting specific properties that would give them a foothold in key neighborhoods, properties that would let them build the empire Daniel had always dreamed of, properties I'd been quietly acquiring for years. The breakthrough came when they approached me about the old Aldridge furniture warehouse. I'd bought it 18 months ago when the family business finally closed. Prime downtown location, zoned for mixed use. Perfect for the luxury condo conversion Daniel had been fantasizing about since before we separated. This time they didn't hide behind pseudonyms. Birchwood Holdings would like to schedule a tour of the Aldridge property. We're prepared to make a competitive offer. Birchwood Holdings, Daniel's new LLC. I had my assistant schedule the meeting. The Aldridge building still smelled like sawdust and old leather when I arrived for our appointment. Afternoon light streamed through the tall windows, highlighting dust motes that danced like tiny stars. I was examining the original hardwood floors when I heard their voices in the lobby. Incredible potential here. The bones are perfect, and the location... Emma. I turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, Lauren beside him. Both dressed in their power suits. Both looking like they'd seen a ghost. Hi, Daniel. Lauren recovered first. Are you here about the warehouse too? Competition's getting fierce. I smiled. Actually, I own it. The silence that followed was profound. Daniel's face went through several expressions. Confusion, recognition, something that might have been panic. You own this building. Lauren's voice was carefully controlled. I do, have for a while now. But when did you... My family's been in real estate for 3 generations, Lauren. I thought Daniel might have mentioned that. I watched them process this information. Watched them realize what it meant. The Victorian on Rose Lane, Daniel said slowly. That was you too. And the Birchwood properties. And the Morrison building you spent so much time researching. Lauren's face had gone pale. How many properties do you own? Enough. Over the next few weeks, they tried a different approach. Instead of attempting to buy my properties, they started looking for alternatives. Similar locations. Comparable bones. Anything that would let them build their vision without going through me. But I'd been playing this game longer than they'd been playing each other. Every property they showed interest in was either overpriced, had title issues, or came with complications that made their business model impossible. The few decent alternatives they found, I quietly made better offers. Not to hurt them, just to maintain my position. Daniel called me on a Tuesday evening in March. Emma, we need to talk. About what? Don't play games, you know what? We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Daniel looked tired. The confident shine he'd worn during our divorce had dulled. Why are you doing this? Doing what? You know exactly what. Every property we try to buy, every deal we try to make. You're there first. I sipped my latte. It's a competitive market. This isn't business, Emma. This is personal. Is it? We could have been partners in this. All of us. Lauren has incredible instincts, and you have the capital. We could have built something amazing together. The audacity was breathtaking. You divorced me because I wasn't ambitious enough. Because Lauren was a better match for your vision. Now you want me to bankroll that vision. This isn't about the divorce. Then what is it about? Daniel leaned forward. It's about fairness. You're using resources you never told me about to sabotage our business. I'm using my resources to make investments I believe in. That's how capitalism works. Emma, please. Lauren and I, we're trying to build something here. We're not hurting anyone. I set down my cup. When you decided I wasn't ambitious enough, did you consider that maybe I was just playing a longer game? What do you mean? You saw quiet and assumed passive. You saw supportive and assumed dependent. You never once asked where my insights about the market came from. or how I knew which neighborhoods were about to appreciate, or why I always seemed to understand zoning laws and development potential. Daniel was staring at me. You married a real estate heiress, Daniel. You just never bothered to ask. He sat back like I'd slapped him. Your grandfather's connections, he said quietly. My grandfather's empire, which became my grandmother's empire, which became my father's empire, which became mine. Emma, you divorced the woman who paid for your license, who opened doors you couldn't have opened alone, who could have made every dream you shared with Lauren come true. I stood up. But you needed a partner who understood your vision. You found one. I hope she's worth it. The final play came in May. After months of being outmaneuvered, Daniel and Lauren had found one property they could actually acquire. A small office building on the outskirts of downtown. Not ideal, but workable. They signed a lease with plans to sublease the spaces to small businesses and creative professionals. Their profit margins would be thin, but it was a start. The building was owned by Meridian Properties, one of my grandfather's original LLCs. I let them sign the lease, let them move in, let them start recruiting tenants and making plans. Then I had my property manager deliver the news. Rent increase. Effective immediately. New terms included penalties for late payment and restrictions on subletting. Their business model collapsed overnight. Daniel called me that evening. Emma, please, this has gone too far. Has it? You're destroying us. I'm running my business. Your business. You inherited money and you're using it to hurt people. I inherited responsibility. And I'm using it to protect my investments from people who consistently make poor decisions. Poor decisions. You mortgaged your future for someone who was willing to sleep with a married man. You threw away a partnership with someone who had the resources to make you genuinely wealthy. You chose ego over strategy. I could hear Lauren in the background asking questions he couldn't answer. Those are poor decisions, Daniel. What do you want? An apology for me to admit I was wrong. I don't want anything from you. Then why won't you let this go? Because you told me I wasn't ambitious enough. You said I'd lost my edge. But I never lost anything, Daniel. I just kept it hidden. Emma, real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation or recognition. It just acts. I hung up. 6 months later, Daniel and Lauren's partnership dissolved. Not because of anything I did. Because the stress of constant failure had revealed the cracks in their foundation. Lauren moved to another city, taking a job with an established firm where her instincts could shine without the burden of Daniel's grandiose plans. Daniel went back to working for other people's agencies, selling other people's properties, building other people's dreams. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd learned to be more humble, more realistic about his limitations. I hoped that was true, not because I wished him ill, but because humility might serve him better than ambition ever had. As for me, I kept doing what I'd always done, building quietly, investing strategically, supporting projects that aligned with my values and my vision for the communities I'd inherited responsibility for. I started a foundation that provided low-interest loans to first-time homebuyers. I renovated affordable housing units instead of always chasing luxury developments. I used my quiet power for quiet good. People still call me quiet. I still prefer precise, because in real estate and in life you never underestimate the one who holds the deed. And you never assume that quiet means powerless. Sometimes it just means patient. And patience, as my grandfather taught me, is the most valuable asset of all.